Schönen guten Tag, Metalhammer da draußen. Ich sitze hier in Köln mit Dave Mustaine von Megadeth, der ein neues Album am Start hat, wie ihr in der Geschichte schon lesen konntet. Wir werden uns jetzt ein bisschen unterhalten mit ihm über das, was ihn zu dem Gitarristen und Songwriter gemacht hat, der jetzt ist. Dave, let's talk about who shaped your playing. And you went on record with Guitar World magazine in the US saying that Let There Be Rock by AC/DC was your favorite record, your most influential record of all time. Why is that so?
Well, when I first got the record, when I first put it on, you know, I was already used to listening to other heavy bands growing up, but I'd never heard anything like that before. Just the rawness of the guitar. It felt like you were sitting on the drum set when the guitar started in, and you just hear that dirty, filthy, you could probably see the tarnish on the hi-hat just by sitting there listening to it, and it was Go Down, and that's the first song I heard, and I'm like, I'm a teenager and I'm listening to this outrageous music about a blowjob, and I'm thinking, you know what, this is my kind of band. And then as the record continued to progress and it went into songs like Dog Eat Dog and Let There Be Rock, I realized that I discovered the band that was the most in tune with me, being, you know, a rebel as a young man.
Do they still have some importance for you, AC/DC?
AC/DC will always have relevance to me because of just, you know, what Angus meant to me as a player, what Malcolm meant to me as a rhythm guitar player, what Bon meant to me as a front man. You know, AC/DC is just one of the greatest bands in the world.
Okay, but the basis of AC/DC is all blues and Chuck Berry. And
Right.
I wouldn't consider Megadeth, the guitar playing and the vibe of Megadeth, like blues-based.
Well, that's your first mistake, because my three sisters and I listened to Motown as a kid all the time. Not because I chose it, but because that's what they listened to. So I grew up on urban music, and actually one of the first guitar solos I ever learned was Chuck Berry's Johnny B. Rock, or Johnny B. Good, whatever.
Okay. Another important guitar player is in your life, as far as I know, is Michael Schenker.
Yeah.
So what does he mean to you these days?
Well, what influenced me as a kid was when I heard he'd done the record Phenomenon. He was in his early teens, and that to me really blew me away because it was just so incredible playing on it. And I think that spurred me on a little bit because I figured if he could do it, I could do it. Age is no matter. Started playing in a style that Michael had, which was really classically oriented. Didn't even know I was learning how to play a classically influenced style. When I look back at the songs that influenced me, I can listen to them just like it was yesterday. Like the beginning tension in the first chord of the song Mother Mary. You know, you could almost just hear it's like an avalanche, just ready to just go, and just, you know, to me that's the tension I love in songs. One of the songs that I used to use to get up in the morning was Natural Thing. It was just a great rock riff, getting up and listening to that. And No Place to Run was a great record for me too. But you know, everybody's got their classic. For me, my favorite solos that Michael ever did was on Obsession.
Mm-hmm. You're still really young. You're not keeping tabs of him on him anymore. Do you see any parallels in his troubled life to your past tribulations he had to get through? He had like drug problems and breakups.
I wasn't necessarily copying that part of his life. You know, we all have the ways that we deal with talent and the pressures that come with it, and unfortunately sometimes, you know, our personal trials and tribulations are publicized, and that's always sad because, you know, if people publicized our victories more than our defeats, I think it would be okay to have your defeats publicized, but we live in a world where it's hard. That's why people get fat and lazy, and a lot of times people actually enjoy watching some person fall because it makes them feel better about their own inadequacies. I look at Michael's troubles from what little I know of it, because I just kind of don't even want to know about that because of who he means, what he means to me and who he is to me. It's kind of like I almost can't believe it. So I tend to think of Michael as my guitar hero, and you know, I wish him the absolute best in you know, his life and his walk and, you know, his career.
Okay. How important was now from going to something musically quite different? How important was Venom to you?
Well, Venom was a band that I listened to back when I was young, and I think a lot of it was just to get a rise out of people. I remember being at a club one night wearing a Venom shirt and some penthouse pet coming up to me and propositioning me because of my shirt that I had on, and I thought, thanks guys. Now, as far as the ability of the band and stuff like that, I don't think that I really cared much about their playing as just the outrage of what they were saying, you know, buried alive and stuff like that. And looking back at it, you know, I don't know how serious they were about it, if they were having fun or not, but we certainly had fun when we were listening to it, because me and the singer in my last band would be driving up and down PCH, Pacific Coast Highway in California, in the fog at night, drunk on vodka in his little pickup truck that's basically like a beer can with wheels. And if we would have rear-ended a seagull, we would have died, let alone the fact that traffic is on Pacific Coast Highway. Now, I remember numerous times wanting to say, slow down, James, but, you know, that's not very metal, is it?
Well, I hear you. So, can you actually still listen to Venom these days? Or do you actually still listen to Venom?
No, I don't have any of the records from my old collection because, you know, they were records, and, you know, that stuff just sits in a closet long enough. They either bend or, you know, they stick together. It's funny that you mentioned Venom because I just saw a picture of Abaddon the other day, and it reminded me of back when I used to listen to them, and you know, just the way that it made me feel back then.
Okay. It's very well known that new wave of British heavy metal influenced you as a player. So what's the most important band from that genre, from that era for you? Who's your hero?
From that era, it would have to be, not so much influence, but just the whole savoir-faire of the guitar playing would probably be Brian Tatler and from Diamond Head and Hank Sherman from Merciful Fate. Those are two of the players that I really got excited about what they would write.
Mm-hmm. Okay, are you still? You actually toured with Diamond Head. Are you still keeping tabs on Merciful Fate? Do you still listen to old school British heavy metal?
I do once in a while. I mean, the stuff that is, you know, songs that are singing about Satan, the whole entire song is kind of corny to me. So, when I listen to Merciful Fate, I kind of really have to disconnect myself from the words and stuff like that because the thing I like about them is the music. No offense to Kim or anything like that, but it's just for me, I like their music. With Diamond Head, kind of the same thing because there were some songs that were like about the dark side, but then there were so many songs that Sean had written about, you know, relationships and stuff like Baby don't what was it? Babe, I'm gonna no, what was it?
Was not
Don't Go or something.
Not Sucking My Love.
No, well, Sucking My Love is,
it's
you
not
know,
relationships.
No. Don't You Ever Leave was one of the songs, and you know, the guitar part in it was so mournful. You know, it really resonated with like that minor chord that my body's made up of. You know, I'm like a walking minor chord, and listening to like stuff on Borrowed Time for me was fabulous. And I talked to Brian about doing some stuff together, and he sent me some tapes, and I had to send them back because I just couldn't do it at the time. My mind wasn't in the right place.
Okay, the kings of that scene, new wave British heavy metal, are Iron Maiden still. What do they mean to you?
Well, Maiden was a band that I've toured with quite a lot, and it's seen its different lineup changes over the years too. And for me, the thing that really I liked the most about Maiden in the beginning was when I first heard Killers. It just showed me a new intensity of playing music, and the fact that a bass player could lead a band to me was just absurd. You know, it's always been like a front man and a guitar player running a band. And, you know, granted, with the Beatles, Paul was in there, but he had John, you know. I remember hearing the first opening notes on Killers, and although the tone wasn't exactly something that, you know, I gravitated toward because the music was a different kind of an era, just the intensity of it just really blew me away. Of course, you know, when you start listening to a band every day, all day long, you start to pick up what their patterns are and figure out what makes them great and what makes them who they are. And it certainly is the twin guitar attack and Aries bass playing. You know, as far as, you know, the drums and the voice, I love Nico, and got an acquaintance with Bruce, but it was Killers was the one that sold me on Iron Maiden.
Okay. When you think about your influences, is there anything or any band, any musician that people might be surprised to find in your record collection or in your...
Yeah, Crowded House.
Okay. And is there one person that you could call your true hero in music?
Jimmy Page.
For musical reasons. And there's, you have a relationship, friendship, as far as I know, with Alice Cooper.
He's my godfather.
So what does he mean? This is beyond music then, I think. So would you consider him a true hero in your musical world? Or
in my musical world, no.
World.
In personal, see, Alice tried to say something to me many years ago, you know, because as people get older in the music industry, they want to help the younger musicians not stand on the same landmines that they stepped on. And he took me into his bus and sat me down, and, you know, I was drinking and partying at the time, and he was telling me, you know, you need to kind of be careful because this business is going to eat you alive. And, you know, I was young and dumb and not ready to hear him, you know, because when you're in the moment and you're growing up and you're living the life of a rock star and there's girls and drugs and money and everything like that, who's going to say, you know, well, I think I'll be virtuous. You know, you're kind of going like, my whole life I wanted to be a rock star. Okay, now someone's telling me, be a nice rock star. I ain't listening. And then you go into the hole and you do this stuff. But you know what? I totally understand why he said that to me. It's the same reason I want to say it to the young musicians too. It's like, you know, you got to really protect yourself in this business because there's vultures that wait on the bedpost.
Last question. What's your favorite music today? Your favorite band, your favorite song, your favorite album, whatever, today?
That's hard to say. That's hard to say. My favorite music is still guitar-oriented music because there's something about a guitar letting it rip, like the opening riff in Night Flight from Led Zeppelin. Just the sound of that guitar just blows my mind. You know, when you listen to the beginning of songs like, you know, classic AC/DC Riff Raff, you know, that just blows my mind. When you hear the guitar when it's revving up, it's like a photon beam being ready to be shot at somebody. You just know something really, really badass is just getting ready to happen. And then that first chord is like, boom! That's rock and roll. That's heavy metal.